Hello friends, welcome to Selenium tutorial. This is video 6 of the Selenium tutorial video series. In this video I will talk about properties file in Selenium Webdriver, in which we will talk about how to create and read the data from properties file. Okay, so we'll talk about this properties file, why we need properties file, uh, and how to create properties file, how to read properties file. But before that, for my earlier tutorials you can visit my blog testautomated.in, and on my blog you can find various tutorials for manual testing, Selenium, DevOps, Tosca, right? So for Tosca I have very detailed tutorial where Tosca is a test automation tool where no programming knowledge is required, just a drag and drop and you will be done with your automation. Okay, coming to Selenium tutorial, so I have a post over here on my blog, how to read a properties file in Selenium and in Java, in fact, right? So you can find a detailed description along with the program over here, so I'll just take you through the same in this video, right? So now why we need properties file. So let me take a paint. Let us consider a scenario. Let us consider a scenario where I have various environments. Okay, so let us say this is my development environment, this is my system testing environment, this is my SIT environment, and let us say this is my UAT environment. So my application will be developed on this development server. It will be tested on this system testing server. It will be again integrated and tested in system integrated testing server, and finally UAT testing to perform user acceptance testing. Now there are few things which will be in common, like your which will be changing for all this environment is URL, right? The functionality will remain same for development, ST, SIT and UAT, right? Functionality will remain same, but what will difference is URL for this, all the servers will be different, right? So your URL will be different, and your login credentials may different, right? Your admin, whatever admin and other credentials may differ, right? Now let us say I'm I'm doing I'm scripting a Selenium script on this development environment or on system testing environment. So while creating my test cases, I will give the URL of this either ST or either development, wherever I am working on, right? So I can give this URL as a fixed one, right? But if I want to use the same test cases which are created for this dev or this ST, right, for other environments, then I can use it, right? Because the functionality will remain same, only the environment will be different, right? But along with the environment, its URL will be different, so we need to pass the different URL in each server, in each stage of testing, right? That may be URL or your login credentials or any other thing. Now let us say I'm creating my test cases in development server, and on development server let us say I am hard coding this URL, right? So while launching the browser, I'm giving driver.navigate to some my URL name, right? So let us say I'm doing driver.navigate.to, and I'm giving some URL, let us say google.com, right? Let us say I'm giving this URL google.com on development server, right? But as soon as you deploy your code on ST server, your URL will change, right? Your credentials will change, right? So you need to do that change in your code, right? You need to replace this your what is this URL and your login credentials in your test cases, right? So in order to avoid the test case updates for this kind of situations, there is a concept of a properties file. So in properties file, what we can do is we can create a few variables like URL, let us say username, then we can have, let us suppose, password, right? And what we can do is we can set the value to this URL in your properties file. So let me take you through the properties file directly. So I hope you are clear with now why do we need a properties file. Now I'll come to how to create a properties file. Go to Eclipse, right? And how we can create a properties file is, suppose I want to create a properties file under this demo package. Right click on the demo package, go to new and file, and give my file name. So I'll give the name as config dot, make sure that you are giving the proper extension as a properties, right? So my file name is config dot properties, make sure that it is with this extension properties. Just finish it and it will open some your text file. So in this text file, what you can do is, suppose you want to change the URL multiple times, so you can give the let us say variable as URL, and I will give this as a testautomator.in, testautomator.in. Let us say username, so I'll give username as admin. Let us say password, so I'll give password as 123456, right? So now while creating test cases, what I'll do is I will get the URL from this properties file, right? So my test cases will read this URL and the URL taken will be testautomator.in, and username is this and password is this. Let us say I am on development server. Now when my code moves to system testing server, let us say my URL changes like st.testautomator.in, right? So what you can do is you need to simply change your properties file with the URL over here, right? So your test cases will be referring this URL, so you need not to change anything in your actual test cases or your actual Java files, right? So simple change will be in configuration file, a properties file. Let us say you are promoting your code to SIT environment or UAT environment, simply change your details in configuration properties file, right? So here we can create a properties file. So this is how we can create a properties file. And okay, so let me delete this. So I'll just keep it as a testautomator.in and I will save this. Right, now I have created a properties file. I have created a properties file. Now let us see how to read this properties file. Let me create one class in Java and read property file. Let me take a public void main. Fine. Now what we're doing is we will be reading the data from this properties file. Let us say I want to read this URL and I want to pass this URL to a driver, right? So how to do that? Now in Java there is a concept of files. Whenever you are interacting with external data like data from your Word file or text file or Excel file, so that is a kind of file. So there is a class called as file in Java. So we need to define a file first, right? So how to define a file? I'll give the file as file1 is equal to new file, and here you need to give a path of file. So where is my file path? My file, okay, let me import this first. Fine, so here it is, system is expecting me to write a file path, right? So what I'm doing is I'm creating a object of this class file. This class file will be used to interact with external file. So I have created a object of this class file, and here it is expecting me the path. So my path is config.properties. Let me take a path of this. So what you can do is you can get the whole path, or you can get this sample path as well, and you can use a user.dir as a system property and you can get it, right? So I'll talk about that in my next few tutorials. So as of now I'll just take this full location and I'll give it here, and make sure that you have a double slash. Alright, so now I have created an object of a file with a file path of config.properties. Now another thing what you need to do is you need to define a input stream, file input stream, right? So what happen in Java is whenever you are reading a file, it will be stored in a stream. The data will be written the data will be read in the form of a stream, like a so how to define a file input stream? So what you can do is you can create an object of a class file input stream, and I'll give the object as FIS is equal to new file input stream, and here you can give the name of this file. So it is file1. I will give it as a file1 over here and a semicolon. Now let us import this file input stream. File input stream, it is asking me to throw exception. I will surround it with try catch. So for this you should be little bit aware about Java fundamentals, what is try catch block, what is exceptions and all. So do refer my blog for those details. Now so what will happen with this try catch block is it will try to read the data from this file in file input stream, but if file not found exception occurs, so that will be handled in this catch block, right? So you can have any code here. So let us say if file not found, I want to exit, so I'll give system.exit 0, so my system will be exit. Now we have created a file input stream. Now what next is you need to define a properties. You need to define a properties. How to do that? Properties, object of this property is okay. So what we can do is we can create a object of this properties class, right, in order to store the data and read the data from properties file. Now what we can do is we have already data is in file input stream. The data is already present in file input stream by using this file input stream class, right, and this file location. Now what we can do is we can load the data, right? So how to load the data? We have created a variable, we have created the object of this property. So just take that object dot, there is a command called as load, right? So we need to load, and your input stream should be this FIS. input stream should be FIS. Okay, so it is asking me to create a local variable. What I'll do is I will define it here. Right, again it is asking me to have a try catch. Fine. So now what I'm doing is I have created a file. I'm using a file input stream to read the data in file input stream. If the file not found, then it will exit the system. Then now my data is in the input stream. Now I need to load the data, so I will load that data in a object of this properties class, right? So prop dot load. Now the data is loaded in properties file. Now how to read the data from properties file? Let us see how to read. My property file has a data, URL, username and password. So this URL is a key and this thing is a value. Username is a key and this is value. Password is a key and this is value, right? So while when the value is stored, it will be stored in the form of key value pair. That means while retrieving the data from config file from the properties file, we should give this URL as a key, we should give username as a key, we should give password as a key to retrieve respective data from properties file. Fine. Now how to read the data? Since we have already created the object of this properties class, how we can read the data is simple. Prop dot get property and your key, so my key is URL, right? And you can use this data. So I'll just store this data in a string as URL from prop. Fine. So what will happen is now the data from this properties file testautomated.in will be stored in this string, and I'll just display this string, right? So I'm just printing the data from this variable which will contain the data with key URL, and the URL has testautomated.in. So if I run this program, my output should be, the data should be printed as a testautomated.in. Now let me run it as a Java application. Right, so you can see it is testautomator.in. Now let us suppose I want to do a change, and now my let us say for SIT, my URL changes to SIT dot testautomator.in, but all my test cases are created with testautomator.in. So if I'm not using configuration from properties file, then I need to change the URL in each test case. But if I'm using configuration file, properties file, then I can simply do a change over here, right? So that it will be reflected in all test cases. Now I have changed the data. Now my output should be sit.testautomator.in. Can you see? sit.testautomator.in, right? So this is how we can create a configuration properties file, then we can load the properties file, and then we can read the data from properties file, right? So hope this helps. So that's it I have for this tutorial. We talked about why we need properties file, how to create a properties file, how to read the data from properties file, right? Okay, so that's it I have for this tutorial. So you can find the code for this program over here. So I have checked if the file is empty, right? So if the file is empty, so the method is boolean, it returns a boolean. So if it is false, then only it will get a value, right? So you can just go through this code. So this is very simple. If you have any questions, you can put it in a comment. I'll be happy to answer your questions. Okay, so that's it. I have. Keep watching my blog. Do subscribe. Thanks.